How's it going, guys? First off, I just want to say, man, I was completely surprised to see how many views and how many of you guys commented and even subscribed just based off that last video I posted of the Chameleon build. And I figured I owed you guys an update video just because I have made quite a few changes on the bike. You might be already tell what I've done to it, but yeah, I'm just going to show you what I've done to the bike since then. And actually, this is probably version 3 of the bike. Version 1 would be that last video I posted about 2 years ago. And then in between, I would have like a version 2, which was arguably my favorite. It's when I got a shiny orange Fox 36 fork, 160 mil, probably way too much for this bike, but man, it was awesome. I rode on that for a couple months and really enjoyed it a lot. And then I decided to get a full suspension bike, which was the Pivot Switchblade. And in my head at the time, I was going to keep that Switchblade long term, and I honestly was going to try to sell the Chameleon. So I wanted to keep the fork, the Fox 36 that I bought for this bike. I wanted to keep it for the Switchblade, so I swapped them over and I put the fork that came on the Switchblade on this bike, as you can see. And I decided to reduce the travel from 160 from the Switchblade fork now down to 150, which it currently is here now, just because I figured it would make it easier to sell, mostly considering this bike was only meant for 140 mil. So I thought maybe 150 mil would be an easier sell. Won't be as too hardcore hardtail for a new buyer, but honestly, it was pretty tough to get some interest in on this bike. Not too many people, I think, are interested in, built up hardtails, and also I ride an extra large frame, so that probably had something to do with it. So pickings were slim, not too many people are interested, and my whole idea kind of flip-flopped, and I decided to sell the Switchblade. And since I converted this fork to 150, I didn't want to switch it back, so I sold the orange fork with the Switchblade, and I quote-unquote got stuck with this fork, which it's okay. I would have loved to keep the orange one, but this one's been good, and I have actually really been enjoying the 150. That's plenty of fork for me for what I ride, and honestly, it makes the bike look a little, sleeker. It doesn't really stand out, which, and for better or worse. Yeah, so anyways, the biggest change would be this Fox fork. It was actually kind of convenient. The colors of the Switchblade were blue and gray, and it almost matches perfectly with, the rest of the bike. I didn't have to switch the decals on the fork at all, so it's kind of save some money there. Next thing I did was increase the size of the front rotor. I went to a 203. No real particular reason, like the 180 it provided enough stopping power. But I'll be honest, just the look of the 203, I really liked a lot more. And I have been getting a little bit, more confident in riding, and I'm sure this 203 has been helping me out quite a bit, not helping it burn out as much. And yeah, looks pretty awesome. Then I got this extra large mud guard. It was actually a mud guard I swore I would never get. I never thought I'd own an extra large version of it, but there's a good reason why I switched to it now, is because I moved from California out here to Washington. So if you've been out here before, you probably recognize where I'm at. This is one of the viewpoints at Tiger Mountain. My plan today was just to climb up to the summit and then go down the summit, then ride down OTG. Yeah, if you've been out here, you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so with the more increased rain, and there's definitely a lot more mud. As you can see, my bike's a little dirty. It's just kind of what happens when you live out here now. But man, I love it out here. Like, the riding is just like a step above California. Like, I always thought California was awesome, but in terms of what I like to ride, and like, just Washington out here has been great. I recommend anyone, if you've never come out here, it's definitely worth the trip to come out to the Seattle area and up in Bellingham and areas like that. It's such good riding year round, except where it does snow. It did snow this past winter, and I found myself not riding my bike as much, but I'm sure I could have if I wanted to. It's just, yeah, I didn't really want to. Yeah, anyways, on to the next big thing that I did was, you could probably see there's no shifter cable coming out of this shifter. That's because I decided to buy one of my coworkers at the time, Danielle. Shout out Danielle. She was selling her GX Axis, so I decided to pick that up. Mainly due to I never really got along too well with that TRP 12 speed. I honestly think there was something when I was cleaning my bike. Something must have just either gotten the shifter at the time or in my shift cable and housing and just really gunked it up and made it almost impossible to shift. Like I was almost breaking my thumb every time I wanted to upshift, and I just was getting tired of it. So when she offered the GX Axis, I jumped on it, and she gave me a really good price. So shout out Danielle. Another thing that I did differently was I got a new handlebar. I was actually looking for this handlebar for a long time. It's the Santa Cruz carbon, I think it's 20 mil rise handlebar. It came on a lot of their stock bikes, like their CC builds, I think, from a couple years ago. But I just love the way it says Santa Cruz across the front. And Danielle, again, shout out Danielle. She found it on Facebook Marketplace, I believe, and she helped me reach out to the guy, and I sent him some money, and he shipped it out to me. So I've been through that on and really been enjoying it. But I might make a change in the future, but I'll talk about that at the end, what I want to do to this bike still. Let's see, the stem. Yeah, I think I shortened the stem to a 32 mil. I have really been liking that. It kind of helps me ride a little bit more upright. But when I talk about the future plans, I am thinking about rising up the bars a little bit. Probably get some riser bars. Nothing crazy, but maybe like a 30 or 40 mil rise. Just because these don't feel perfect. They feel really good, but just not perfect. Now for the grips, I got these pretty recently actually, just because the race face grips I had on there finally started wearing down a lot. I've been doing a lot of riding up here, and I love to ride barehanded, and those race face getter grips were perfect for riding barehand. Like, they held up to the sweat really well. And what I'm finding with these grips is they don't really like the sweat too much. My hands slip and slide on these a lot when they get sweaty, so I am finding myself having to wear gloves a lot more, which is probably for the better. I'm sure I'll be glad I have gloves on if I ever fall. So this guy likes the grips, I guess. But yeah, I picked those up from the local bike shop. They didn't have the race face grips, so I just went with those. Let's see. So yeah, I got the XO1 chain. This bike probably has about 1,400, 1,500 miles. It probably wasn't needed to get a new chain, but I have been noticing some skipping, which first I thought was the chain, but I am starting to realize that it could be coming from my cranks. That's just because these XO1 cranks were actually meant for the wide 55 millimeter chain line. So they're a little wider than they probably should be for this frame. So when the chain's on the lowest gear, the chain line's not perfectly, it's a little crooked, and I think that's putting a lot of stress on the chain here up in the chain ring, and even back here on the cassette. So I'm gonna have to address that sometime in the future, especially as I keep riding this bike. But that kind of sums up for what I've done to the bike. I still ride clipless, which I love. With the hardtail, like, it's almost a necessity, especially when you ride some bumpy trails. Like, I couldn't imagine riding flats on a hardtail, so love that. But yeah, as far as the future plans for the bike, what I would like to do is, I've really been thinking about going to the Shimano Link Glide, that 11 speed. Like what do they say? It's like 300% stronger, or it'll last 300% longer than their regular Hyper Glide stuff. I think they designed it for e-bikes, but man, I would love just to throw it on this bike. Like, I'm not concerned about weight at all. This bike to me is just a workhorse. Like, it's just always going to be up for the challenge, always going to, be ready to ride. Very little problems, very little hassle, which honestly, this bike has been. Like, this bike has not given me any issues. It's been perfect. Like, to me, it's like a little tiny two-door Toyota Tacoma, just rear-wheel drive. Like, it's not going to be ultra capable, like, a big full suspension 4-wheel drive. but it's just gonna, try its best, and it's gonna have a smile on its face, and it's gonna keep going day after day and like give you no little issues. So yeah, I love riding the hardtail in terms of maintenance. Like honestly, like riding out here in the wet and things like that, I would probably worry about, pivot points and stuff like that on a full suspension. But with this hardtail, like I'll occasionally wash it. I always take care of the chain, whether or not it looks like it now, but I clean that every day. But other than that, that's like the only maintenance I do to this bike, really. It's been super, super solid. And I love having the alloy frame, and having the alloy frame on this bike kind of makes me want to get an alloy frame full suspension in the future, whenever I do end up going down that path. It's a shame Santa Cruz no longer really makes alloy full suspensions, because I would love sticking with Santa Cruz. I'm kind of a Santa Cruz diehard, but there's plenty of good bikes out there. I'll just do my research and find one that works for me. But anyways, guys, that's the update. Let me know if you have any questions. Thanks again for all the comments and all the views on the last video. That was awesome. And yeah, have a great day.